In our last shooting tip, we talked about a bench rest shooting platform and some features and dimensions that make it a great foundation to shoot from. In this shooting tip, we're going to kind of bypass, setting up a bench and getting the proper rests and gear. That we'll save those for additional video content, perhaps on our YouTube channel. And we're going to jump straight to 4 specific techniques that we teach in our long-range training courses that help our customers achieve very consistent vertical in their groups at long range. So we're talking about going from 24-inch, 18-inch, 24-inch high groups to less than 5-inch high groups at long range. So let's just start at the basics. You've got your rear bag, and in a 2-point support rest, you've got a rear bag situation. We want that rear bag to be directly below where your cheek pressure is on the stock. Now, if you've got the bag forward or far back, then you're gonna create a moment or a torque on the gun, and when it recoils and reacts, it can cause a point of impact. Also, we want to make sure that we have good pressure stock, good contact from the stock to the bag. And this is common, if you're high and you try to adjust the gun so you float the rear bag, so you're kind of hanging up off that rear bag, when you shoot, the tendency for the gun is to drop back down into position, which raises the barrel, which causes a high shot. So we're going to look for good contact, and we're going to look for contact directly below your point of contact on your cheek. So that's your rear bag. The second thing we want to look at is the setup with your cheek. So we want to anchor on the stock in a consistent spot that puts us in line with the axis of the scope so that we can find our target, so that we have a good image. So one of the common errors that we see in our class in technique is a student will set up the gun to the side, over here to the left, and he'll put the gun in this pocket that his arm forms. And when he shoots, he'll drop his cheek down to the stock. Now, if this gun isn't perfectly built for sitting position for that customer, for his face and eye and position and all that, he might be too low or too high based on where he fits. What I want to show you is a little bit more universal situation that if you practice at the bench, when you go to the field and you get into like a prone position where the relationship between you and the gun changes so much, it will help you anchor and find targets very quickly from prone position. So what we're going to do is bring the gun over into center. We're going to square up our shoulders a little bit more, and we're going to put the gun, the recoil pad, in this pocket formed between our shoulder and our pec muscles, right? So we're right in here, it fits right in that pocket, and then we're going to drop with that barrel in line with our right eye. We can find our target, then we drop straight down into the stock, and we're going to anchor off of our jawline. And when we touch on our jaw instead of our cheek, it lets us adjust our eye position down or up until we're perfectly on axis and we can see a good sight picture. And then pretty quick you'll get used to right where that's supposed to go, so you can get down into the stock and get your sight picture. When you get prone, you're going to find it's really different. So having this technique will really help you when you go to the field. So there's number 2. Number 3 is we've got to have free recoil. When you shoot a gun, so let's say we've got this bipod attachment on the front of this bag. If it comes back and it catches that bag while you're shooting, and it catches and the gun recoils before the bullet exits the muzzle, it can cause that gun to react differently. Also, if you've got, say, a big clamp rest that just stops the gun from recoiling at all, it's kind of nice to shoot, but what it's going to do is it's going to put a lot more load on that recoil lug, and it's going to change the harmonics of your barrel. So for a couple reasons, we want to have that gun, when we shoot, just slide straight back. So anytime I get behind a gun and I'm checking my rest, I'll just get in behind and I'll wiggle it real quick and load it forward just to make sure that it'll recoil correctly. So there's our third point that we want to apply. And the last thing is when we shoot, we want to follow through. And that operates on 2 different levels. The first one's on the trigger. If we're scared of the gun, the trigger's too light, and we're kind of staying shy of the trigger, when we go get ready to shoot and we say go, we're going to grab it and we're going to bounce off that trigger. And that's going to give us very little control over when that trigger breaks. The proper thing to do is get your sights in alignment and then apply pressure. And then as your sights are in alignment, you apply more pressure and more pressure. And then when it breaks, the gun recoils, and then we're going to push that gun back into battery, and then we're going to release the pressure on the trigger. And doing that will help you retain and even gain, in some cases, trigger control so that it breaks when it's supposed to. The second part of follow through is we want to visualize mentally that bullet impacting our target or the animal that we're chasing. If we practice enough and we have good shooting position, when we shoot, we should be able to return that gun to battery and then see the impacts. Now, in one of our stocks that has a pretty straight comb and a pretty low moment arm, we'll be able to see pretty good results 500 to 1,000 yards. If you've got a really heavy gun, you'll see good results. If it's a low recoil gun with a light cartridge, you'll see good results there. But usually you want to try to see it happen. If you don't, at least visualize it happening. Try to see the aftermath when you're done. And then as part of that, you'll keep your head down on the stock, you'll keep in the scope, and then after you see, then you pick up and you release. And that'll just keep your head down on the stock. If you don't do that and you pick your head up, let's say to ask your spotter where you hit, or you pick your head up to look down range and see what happened, you're gonna have a tendency to lift that buttstock off the bag. If you do that before the bullet exits the muzzle, you're gonna raise the buttstock, drop the muzzle. And that's gonna give you a low shot. So we can usually analyze a client's performance and look at where he's hitting on the steel and what kind of spread he's got to decide, what techniques he needs to practice on, and we'll watch him and analyze that. So same thing for you. If you see big vertical dispersion, it could be several things, but it might be your technique. And we want you to just practice those 4 points. If you do that and apply those 4 points, and the next time you go to the range, you'll get more consistent results. So as a little bonus, parallax is also one of those items that you need to understand and practice so that you can get good vertical dispersion. I'll tell you, you have to adjust for every different range that you shoot. Now, it's important to understand that the parallax knob here is not just a focus. It actually gives you the ability to shoot more consistently. If you go to our YouTube channel and check out the hundreds of videos that we have there, one of those videos is about parallax. It demonstrates the effects and explains to you how important it is. So it'll give you kind of a head start in understanding how parallax works. Next time you go to the range, make sure you practice those 4 tips so that you can get consistent results in vertical dispersion, and you'll be a better shooter, you'll be more confident in your gun, and you'll have better success when you go to the field.